Okay, so Paul and I were talking about are there too many games? A common,
a favored question.
A favored question, but that led into like the need for short games, and like obviously my evergreen counter is like we need good curation. We were also talking about how there are tons and tons of books and tons of movies, but like there's no letterboxed for games unless you can letterbox games. Can you letterbox games?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, they won't let you.
There might be games on there. I'm not sure.
Oh.
There's workarounds for TV shows on there. I know that much.
There's more of a curation structure for books and movies because, again, like, but for movies, we were saying the time investment is low. Like 3 hours is pretty much the top end.
If a game is 2 or 3 hours, it's probably extremely indie or extremely game jammy, right?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I went on a bit of a Spyro kick.
Yeah.
I crossed my chest in a very Catholic way, and I ignored the Activision logo on the front, and I bought the Spyro trilogy on sale. The reignited trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very, very good. The art design is excellent. They stay like perfectly faithful to the script, which is very weird, because the script is very strange.
Is Spyro a Japanese game?
No, it's Insomniac. They did Ratchet and Clank and others.
Okay, so it's not a translation thing. It's just a straight up strange script from the beginning.
This was via video game historian who is on, I think, permanent hiatus, but video game historian or gaming historian, I forget. It's great. But this was Insomniac's second game. There were about, I think, 10 people working at the company, and they made the game in a year for the PlayStation 1.
Yeah.
And like the only reason it could be made was the programmer figured out he could reduce the polygon count in models that were far away to save space. So you could have these big wide levels and not have too many triangles gumming up your works because you could just reduce the amount of polygons as something got farther away and you wouldn't really notice. And that opened up just this very horizontal, open world-ish platformer. And the first Spyro game is like really weird in that it's pretty like kid friendly, but also if you want 100% it, you kind of have to think. It's all about like holding the level structure in your mind and thinking of, and like seeing a ledge and like seeing a ramp and being like, how do I get to the ramp from the speed boost so that I can get to the ledge? And it's about holding a whole 3D space in your mind to get these really like difficult, like 100% like gem achievement stuff. But like, it's a short game. Like it's a short game. It doesn't really vary from its initial moves. Like Spyro, it's not a Metroidvania. Spyro doesn't get more moves.
Right.
Like there are more like stage elements they can interact with, but it's just variations on charging into stuff and shooting fire. But it feels like kind of game jammy in that sense, where it's just like, this is about everything Spyro can do. Like this is it. We're just going to explore that and be out because this has to be out by, holiday season, like 1998 or whatever. But yeah, it's just one of those great little, like perfect gem of an idea. And like Spyro 2 is the one that everyone's like, I love the characters. The world is so good to vibe in. And Stuart Copeland's all over the soundtrack for all three of them. And he only gets better.
The soundtrack has been the thing I've interacted with the most for that game. I played it when I was younger, but I haven't revisited, but I definitely get those tracks when I'm listening to like compilations and stuff like that.
Yeah, there's a drummer I really like on YouTube, David Dockery, and he does like a drum set over the Spyro music, and it sounds so good.
Nice.
Like he's great. Look him up. He does like drum covers of other stuff too, and he's just a really, really good drummer. But like Stuart Copeland, like another extremely really, really good drummer. His music for Spyro is so good, basically because he was with the dev team. Like they would, he would have like the demo of the level and they would tell him like what was going to go in it and the vibes and stuff like that. And he'd just play, and then he'd go over to his like tools and start making music. And like that's like a cool, I want to do that with Joe on a SuperTry project. I want to get Joe a full level and be like, what do you think this sounds like? Because we work in the complete opposite direction where
he does music first.
Yeah, he does music first, and then I'm like, oh, I think I know where to put this, or I really want to make a level that jives with this. So it's, there in some games, like he's done music where I'm like, oh, I didn't think the tone of the scene was this, but now I want it to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm like, we haven't really gotten to do like a Joe, here's a level, play it, and tell me what you think the music vibes are. So that's a wish list item for this year.
That's super interesting, and I see that in your games. I've always said that I think one of the things I like about your games is you tend to open with like a very like verve laden credit sequence, which I love.
Yeah.
And I sent you a trailer for a game last night, which I played, I guess, years ago, but it's now been developed, it's been developed into a full game that's going to release eventually called Sauna 2000. And they released a trailer that I think, again, is like a very like verve laden. I think the music in it is giving it like a filmic quality to it, right? Where there's, I don't know, video games can have, people talk about cinematic qualities of video games, and I think that those definitely do exist. And I think it's usually bad when a game reaches for movie, instead of just trying to be a game that is stylish.
Yes,
but I think Sauna 2000, at least in that trailer, feels filmic in that trailer. But you can see that that the game is I don't know, has its own little bit of like personality and life, and like I don't know, like a film is like everything is planned, right? It's storyboarded and like shots are built out, but like capturing a vibe in a video game, which I think you are able to do because you work in 2D, which is a little different, right? Like it's a little bit more, you have sequences that are going to generally play out the same because of the limitation of movement. 3D is where it gets really interesting, and I actually think games are more filmic when they're 2D than they are when they're 3D. I think once you're in 3D, you start to lose a lot of what makes a game, or what makes a movie, which is like the locked off camera and like a forced perspective. And but I do think that this game Sauna 2000, I think I don't know what it's going to be like when it's an actual game that I can play, if it's going to maintain that feel. But I thought that had that, and it just sort of reminded me of when I've played a SuperTry game for the first time, and you open it up and you get the SuperTry logo, and then you're in the game, and then there's like maybe like a learning moment, and then a brief interlude of, hey, let's just walk you through the world, you know? And I always think that those moments are so confident and steady, and I think that's when video games, they can like touch the same kind of space as a movie, and I think that's when they're at their, I don't know, I think like not when they're at their best, but when they're at their most cinematic. And I think, and we're going to talk about some stuff today that I think actually kind of touches on that as well. But yeah, I think that I now that I think about that, and I think about that with the music, and I think about how you probably get Joe's music and that creates a moment in your head. I don't know if this is how it actually works out, but that creates a vibe and a moment, and you want to let the player have a moment to settle into that. And that's what those moments feel like to me in a SuperTry game.
Yeah, I've said before, like, when I make anything, like right now I'm writing some fiction for a Storylords guest spot, so keep an eye on the Storylords podcast. But I'm writing some fiction for that, and I found I'm doing it the same way I make anything, which is I write out all of my good ideas first. Like I have like the moments in my head, and I get to those as quickly as possible, and then the actual work is just connecting the moments. Like I don't write. I try not to write it all like linearly, like from one point to the next. I'm like, all right, what's the best thing I can write right now? And then I do that, and then the next best thing, and the next best thing. And pretty soon I have all the good things about it, and I have to connect them somehow. And making sure it's not a feast of connective tissue is kind of the whole problem. Right. Like coming up with new moments if like two moments don't connect very well. But yeah, the SuperTry intro thing is, I don't know. I think that comes from reading, or very early in my career, reading advice being like, don't show a big long studio thing at the beginning of your game. No one knows what your studio, if you're starting out, no one knows what your game dev studio is, and no one gives a shit about Squirrel Interactive or whatever you're calling yourself. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, fuck you. Like, dress for the job you want, bitch. Like,
right.
If I do it cool enough, then, and now people are like, yeah, I like how you start SuperTry games, because like it's a big like celebration with the SuperTry logo. I get comments. They're like, when I see that SuperTry logo, I know I'm about to play a good game. And I'm like, yeah, like, just have fun. Like, if someone's saying don't do this because it's bad, don't be like, I shouldn't do bad things. Be like, what's a really fun way to do this bad thing?
Right. Yeah. I think it always, I don't know. It like I said, like typically you start, I feel like your games, it doesn't always work this way, but they tend to throw you in, which I think is the best way for a video game to start, is to just like pop you into the world and be like, here you are. Here's the most basic way to interact with this world. Get a feel for it, and then let me have a little bit of like a tone setting moment, that kind of, and it's like kind of how a movie works typically. Usually you have like a kind of an opening sequence that kind of establishes the tone, maybe like is a little titillating, it engages the senses and kind of draws you in, and then you tend to have title sequence. Some movies will just open with the title sequence, and I think that's also a valid and cool way to open a movie, but I love it when something kind of gives you a little appetizer, and then is like, all right, now we're going to set a tone with like music and just sort of like let you kind of like enter the dream a little bit more.
I feel like this transitions so perfectly into talking about Dragon's Heaven.
Yeah, honestly, I think it relates to both of them, but let's so we should say that we're taking a little divergence from our normal young adult literature reading today to talk about two animes, right?
Yeah. We should also say Chad unfortunately can't be here today because California is on fire. I know we usually do a joke, but California's on fire, and that sucks ass.
Yeah.
And
Chad is okay. That's what we should.
He's okay. He's relocated because the air quality was really bad, but he and his family are fine. It's just, man, like, come on, world.
I also thought about Chad in our second thing that we will talk about today, Angel's Egg. Because he had probably had his very own arc type situation in moving he has quite a menagerie of animals, and it's I imagined that was quite a lively car, a load of animals.
If we were clickbaiting this, we would call this Dragon's Heaven and Angel's Egg Explained.
Oh yeah. I don't plan to explain anything.
I have my interpretation of Angel's Egg, which I'm going on record saying is not as obtuse as its reputation. It's pretty straightforward.
I think so too. Yeah. Well, I was prepared to say that I think that movie is a great example of something that is not intended to quite. I think there is a meaning for the creator, but I don't know that it's intended to have a distinct meaning. I think it's intended to be pretty evocative. And for you to kind of take from it what you will within a set of themes that the author's working with.
I will attempt to prove in this essay that Angel's Egg is both a horror and a comedy.
Okay.
Depending on which knight of faith you are.
It is Twilight Zone-esque in its comedic laugh at the end, I think.
Yeah, I think it is, like, honestly, like, very funny if you see it in a certain light. But Dragon's Heaven is a 1988 anime that, Paul, you had been meaning to watch and I had been meaning to watch.
Yep.
And we did.
We finally watched it. It's really short because
it's so short.
42-minute runtime. And the movie ended at like 35 minutes, maybe even less.
Yeah, it's like a 22-minute episode of animation, but it's bookended by these like puppet sequence of 2-meter tall like giant mech models that were paid for out of the director's pocket because he thought they were so cool.
It's awesome because I love stuff like this because I wouldn't say it's extremely believable, although there are moments where it looks really cool. So yeah, it opens on a credit sequence that plays over physical versions of the robots featured in this movie, enshrouded in fog and slowly awakening.
Yeah, the robots are just kind of looking and just kind of wiggling their fingies, and then we get a little bit of walking, but it doesn't look good, but it's still like the models are cool.
Yeah, the walking is the part that strains credulity a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's okay because they're having fun. You can tell they're having fun shooting this stuff.
No one would make this unless they loved the shit out of it.
Exactly.
Is the whole vibe. It's like... no one's like ashamed of it or weird. They're like, or being weird about it. Like you got like the one director guy who like in the end sequence in the making of like just looks at the camera and winks because he's having the fucking time of his life. Like, look at this shit. It's cool as hell.
Yeah, I think that I love moments like this, and I love movies that feel like this too. Where like I think a lot of people like enjoy bad movies for this, maybe a similar type of reason. I'm not quite a bad movie guy. I don't seek out bad movies, but I understand the appeal. And I think the appeal of a bad movie for some people maybe is one, you get to laugh at it and joke about it with your friends. That's definitely a fun thing to do. But I also think that there's a certain approachability and like maybe like aspirational quality to it where you're like, oh, I could make something like this with my friends if we were having fun one time. And like that's what it always reminds me of. There's a movie called Ring of Fire that came out I think last year or the year before. But Ring of Fire or Circle of Fire? I can't remember exactly the name.
Ring of Fire is a Johnny Cash song.
You're right. It is.
Reign of Fire is I think a Sean Connery vehicle.
Yeah, I forget. I'll look up the name of it and we can say it later. But anyways, it's a movie about three kids who want to play a video game, but that's
right. Riddle of Fire.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Three kids that want to play a video game, but there is a riddle of fire that is protecting the system, that is password protecting the system, and they can't get through it.
Cool.
Yeah. So, but that movie had that feeling of it's good and there's a lot of really good sequences, but it's also extremely like handmade feeling. And I think that's what Dragon's Heaven opens with, is like this handmade feeling that's obviously buying some time. Like they wanted to fill the full double episode OVA time limit of 42 minutes. And they were like, well, we can get like 10 minutes out of these models if we really stretch it. Right.
But you said part of like, and Dragon's Heaven is not bad.
No.
But you said like part of the enjoyment of a bad film is the smug knowledge that you could do it better. I don't think anyone could do Dragon's Heaven. It's so impossibly detailed and good looking. Like,
the anime itself, clearly, extremely well made. And I think even that opening sequence, I don't think that I get the pure joy out of smugly being able to be like, I could do it. I think it's more like, not that I could do it better. It's more like, oh, this is really relatable because it's like getting a camera and making something with your friends that feels really handmade. Whereas like, there's like there's just a joy and like a play to it that you don't get when it's like a big CGI thing that like, a team of 100 people worked on.
Right. And we did watch this 100% legally, but in the comments,
I didn't do anything. I didn't do anything illegal. I did a 100% legal activity, as my friend Kevin has said many times.
Yeah. You can type anything to YouTube search bar, and it's fine. But in the comments, I was reading like old heads and also young people talking about the old days of anime OVA trading, where like you'd buy something. From in like an American perspective, you'd buy something at a con and then you'd like watch it and you'd be like, what the hell is this? I guess I'm just in for the ride. All I had was like the advertising on the VHS or whatever, or the laser disc. And then like you'd buy like 2 copies and your other one was your trader. Like you'd like give that to other people and be like, dude, you have to watch this so we can talk about it. And like both of those are just such like a lock-in kind of way to watch a thing. Like in the streaming era, like, you could watch anything, like spend 2 hours trying to find a 90-minute movie rather than watch a long movie. Like, we're spoiled for choice. But in like, for the old head anime, grognard, this was like, I've finally a new anime. Let's sit down and watch it. And when you start seeing robot puppets, you're like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And like maybe some of these cuts are a little too long for just wobbling in front of like smoke and lights, but also still pretty sick.
Pretty cool. I mean, like when one turns its head and a little light appears in its eye, like that's dope. They did a good job of like, and eventually they start cutting in those like one I think is a shot of like a puppet human face inside of it, but then they have that one shot of an actual arm, a human arm. And it's like clearly built onto a set at that point, and like doing a good job of trying to create a little bit more reality to these things that they're shooting and like make them feel alive. Because there are some moments again, like where it walks, where it, like that's a guy holding this model and moving it back and forth. It wasn't really built for that.
Yeah,
but some of the head moves and like arm moves and stuff, like they look really good. And it again, it's like it's just fun. It's just a fun time. But talking about holding on to shots for too long, or maybe longer, or as long as they should be held on to. Angel's Egg, which we will talk about, is masterful with that. So I want to bring that back later. But
put a pin in that.
But let's put a pin in that. So yeah, like you get this little opening sequence, which is again a tone setter, right? You get some cool music. You get some literally atmospheric fog. If you're on a film set, they'll say, "Let's get some atmosphere in here," and then you'll spray fog everywhere. So you literally are getting that. And then you're dropped into like a robot war. And both of these movies fall into the genre of big sad world, as I like to call it.
The big sad world. Holy shit. That is a new favorite genre.
These are both big sad world movies. And this one starts out in a big sad war world. And we get an extremely like human-like robot that we're, a very like emotionally evocative robot talking to us.
We got some top left green subtitles that really like surprised me. I was like, how fan dubbed is this?
Yeah, I thought that was cool. That's like a little moment of like, because there are people talking, but they're not synced up with that. It's like an announcer, like a over the PA of the battleship that I guess we're on is talking, but then we have other characters talking in Japanese who aren't translated on screen, which is really fun.
Yeah, and like what you get when you're dropped into this animation, when you're dropped into this anime, like it's so grainy and dusty and sandy, like filmy, like there is just texture on everything.
Well, that's
some of it from the ink, but also like some of it from just like stylistic.
Yeah, it has that like French animation. I want to say I'm not a scholar of animation, but it reminds me of Mobius a lot.
Mobius for sure.
And there's like that. It's a distinct thing. It's the textures on the animation. There is like hatching, right? Like like everything's got like black scratches upon it.
Again, it's this handmade quality where. I've seen anime that put like this parchment filter over everything and it just screams digital, but they're trying to like make it seem like it's more like physical or whatever. But like in, I don't even know if we can call this the DigiPaint era of anime, but like, cause that's more like the aughts is like when they switched over from like physical tools to digital tools for anime. But like, I think like it's all there to just be like, yes, this was made by hands. Like this is a thing that exists. Oh my god, we blasted over my like favorite thing ever, which is the practical title screen, which is just a clay carving of the logo.
Oh yeah, with a light being moved along it, so you get like some action shadow, which is cool.
I want that for everything. I want because like the logo being a physical thing that exists is so cool, and it reminds me of Super Nintendo box art where like they do like a clay like model or something like that, or like a clay representation of the characters like on Plock or whatever.
And, I was just looking at the cover of Monster World on the NES is like and I think that is such a beautiful Earthbound did that too, where it just makes it I guess it just makes it feel real, right? Like it just
that's our Goosebuds vibe for our little avatars too.
Our bud guys,
the clay, our bud guys.
They just it makes it feel like it exists in the world with you. It just sort of like bridges that gap of imagination.
Yeah. You also brought up how the robot sounds very cash. Like he's just kind of a guy.
Throughout the whole thing, he's kind of, and like he gets like admonished by the girl who he adopts as his like driver.
Yeah.
For being so cash. Ikuru, that's right.
Ikuru, who I get huge Finn from Adventure Time vibes from. Like the sort of like the slang, because she's almost got like I'm like trying to filter, like she's talking casually, I can pick that much up, and she's using slang and she's using nicknames and stuff. But like I think she's just kind of a dude. I think she just is kind of like a bro a little bit.
Yeah.
Like she just speaks very casually, and it reminds me of and it has a very like Finn Adventure Time response to anything, which is let's attack head on. Oh yeah, this movie goes exactly how it's expected to go. That would be my only like critique of it, would be that I think it's like there really aren't any surprises in this movie. But I mean, there's no, like, if you're gonna shoehorn like 1,000 years of war in there and just kind of be like, yeah, and it happened. And you're gonna like do all this stuff to suggest a bigger world, you don't really have time to reject the call. And you know what?
Yeah,
I'm fine with Ikuru having no like back and forth about this. Now, the other note I mean, like, about Ikuru,
her moment of call to action is Cheyenne, our giant robot protagonist, stands up in front of her and she says, "Awesome, just like a movie."
Yeah. That's a Finn Adventure timeline.
Yeah,
that's like meta and stupid. It's like she might as well say mathematical.
Yeah, right, right. Yeah, it's pretty. And then from there on, she is best friends with Cheyenne, and they're gonna shoot dragon fire at everything.
Yeah, and then just like Finn from Adventure Time, she's extra agile when she's nude, so she immediately gets in the bath.
Oh yeah, I thought that was fun though, because it's like, we don't know this character. He has been talking. He appears to have a kinship with humanity. He seems pretty distraught at the loss of his driver, of his pilot or co-pilot, whatever it might be. And then he discovers a new human and seems maybe slightly reluctant to fully engage. Because of a fear of loss, and
because of the human carrying box on his shoulder, where you put your human so you can like sync up and do cool human robot stuff. Like the reason he is better than the bad robot is because he works with the human, and together they can accomplish something bigger. Right. Which they don't really go into why, but like if that's true, like maybe reinforce that box, because like one bullet just pierces that thing like it's made of paper mache.
Yeah, he could snipe the hell up in the one act past action sequence that we get to see.
So hopefully part of that 1,000 year slumber was just like putting a little extra padding on that, because
go a little hardening on that thing.
Yeah, shore that up a bit, because that's a concern.
I think the really nice moment is that she does. She's naked, getting a bath, reading the manual on how Cheyenne works, and she gets out, and Cheyenne is covering his robotic eye because he's feeling a little ashamed to be standing in front of this thing, which is a fun moment of like, it's like, this is the character that like you're not expecting. You're expecting like kind of like devoid of
cold and detached, and it's like, no, he's just like kind of a guy, but he's a robot, and it's such like an alien looking robot. Like his head is like a shark fin or whatever. Yep. Like, and he moves kind of like a tank most of the time. Like he doesn't do a lot of stomping; it does a lot of scooting. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that he's like, "Could you please cover up?" It's like it's surprising and funny in such a cliche scene. It's like, obviously you're going to have your sexy female lead take a bath in the middle of the desert. Right. And then get into her trademark Ripley from Alien low-rise undies.
Yep. Tank top and undies. Yep.
Yeah. Just like I'm wearing right now.
Yep. We all are. That is the default uniform for all life.
For all sci-fi protagonists and all life.
If you're listening in the year 3195, that is what we all wore. Please continue to draw us like that.
Yeah, it's hot. All right, we don't solve global warming, so we just
wear less clothes.
Yeah, figured it out. Did you know what the Tenshi Amakuri stuff is. Is it birdseed?
I don't know. I never heard of that stuff before. I did love in the subtitles. She's like, "Oh my god, it's Tenchi Amagori," and then it says in parentheses a delicacy, just so that we know. Like, there's just so we can figure it out as an audience. She does not say that.
Tenchi is angel, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so it's like angel food or something.
What was it? It was Amagari, or what was it?
Amakuri.
I don't know. I'd have to look that up. I'm not exactly sure. But yeah, Tenchi is angel, but it could be other things as well, for all I know.
That's fair. Yeah, and then, God, we didn't even talk about the music, because the music's all over the place and it's amazing.
Yeah.
Like, for hanging out in outside, taking a bath, or like in the bustling bazaar, you have like this 80s ass like wailing saxophone jazz. Like, it's so fun. It's so good. It's just good. It's like the world is so dire, but the feelings are so good.
Yeah. Again, it's big sad world opening, and it's pretty, the music's pretty, I don't want to say dire, but it's like actiony right at the beginning. Yeah. But then we get like, it's just like this giant robot's going to slide around and look cool, and a guitar is going to wail, and a sax is going to wail while we're doing it. And it's just you're just having a good time. I don't think this movie, not that it doesn't have anything to say, but I think this is a empty head, just vibes type of movie in a lot of ways.
I can definitely see like so many, like there's a like I can see like the tendrils of this shooting out. Like Ikaru kind of like gives me Winry from Full Metal vibes. Mm-hmm. Like, again, the Adventure Time kind of thing. But Ikaru, like, I forget when Metroid came out, but you get a lot of Samus.
Big Samus when she suits up and she has her power suit big time.
And that's what I've loved. So this last year, I've been doing a lot of anime OVAs from the 1980s, and I've just kind of loved seeing like the influences, or just trying to connect the dots.
This is when I was watching this earlier. I was like, this was the moment where anime and video games were perfectly synced. They are still kind of synced, but like this is the moment where I think the feedback loop was extremely tight, and maybe it was more leaning towards games drawing from anime, but I feel like, I don't know, the designs and the way things move, and like the sort of like the action sequences, and like tons of enemies flying forward, and then a giant laser blast going off and killing them all, like a screen clearing laser blast. Like, I don't know, there's just like it feels like an NES game. Like I could see the NES game playing out in my mind while watching this, and I just feel like there was a definite sync of like video game aesthetic and anime aesthetic occurring.
The skinny red robots that Elmadane,
the bug bots,
those are definitely like referenced in Zone of the Enders by Kojima, Hideo Kojima. Like that's his like one mech game. Yeah, that is really good.
I've never played that. I've been meaning to play that for a long time.
Zone of the Enders is like really impressive, and very weird and very cutscene heavy because it's a Kojima game. But like I remember like the 1-2 punch of like watching Evangelion too young, and then watching my dad play Zone of the Enders and being like, man, like, is Japan okay? Everything's so heavy.
I mean, and we're gonna get into Angel's Egg. I think there's a lot of parallels between Angel's Egg, not parallels, but consistent theming between Angel's Egg and Evangelion. Although I think that Evangelion is using it more as just flavor, and Angel's Egg is probably using it for actual themes.
Both are like, oh my god, you know about Kierkegaard? And I'm like, kind of. A little bit. Like, only through anime.
Right.
While we're on a mini tangent, how'd you hear about Dragon's Heaven? Like, how'd you come across it? Because I found it through a popular anime YouTuber, Kenny Lauderdale, who did like a 10-minute send-up of it.
I think I found it. God, I don't even remember how I found this. There was definitely a point where I was just sort of collecting OVAs. It might have actually been when I first watched Angel's Egg. I think I was just sort of like on YouTube finding like OVAs that hadn't been released here and were just kind of available online. Like So I think I just found it that way. I can't remember it. It's literally at the top of my watch later list, so it's been there for a really long time.
Yeah, I've had a few. Like, you recommended Cat Soup to me like a really long time ago, and I finally watched it.
Oh man, we didn't get I would just like to know your top line of Cat Soup.
Sad,
yeah,
beautiful, funny. Yeah, I think with a lot of these, what I love most about them, and it's extra evident in Cat Soup, is you'll have the impulse to type in like Cat Soup explained or whatever.
Yeah.
But that's never as good as just like sitting with it.
Okay, so as I was looking for Angel's Egg, and this was something that I was thinking about the whole time I was watching it, I watched it on YouTube the first time I watched it, and it was no longer available. So somebody realized that people are checking this thing out and was like, well, we better sell this. So that's gotten taken down. But like, still tons of thumbnails of people talking about it, a lot of explains, and like one that just said, Angel's Egg is weird. And
it's not.
No.
It's so straightforward.
No. And I was thinking about that a lot. And I don't know. Maybe there's a lot more nuance. There probably is a lot more nuance to that video. Maybe there isn't a lot more nuance, but there could be a lot more nuance where maybe they do say a little bit more than that.
I think I watched that video, and I don't think they say much more.
Okay. I mean, like, when I see that, and I don't want to, like, put someone down for just putting their thoughts out there and thinking something's weird, but I think when I see that, what that says to me is it's a person who maybe isn't comfortable with silence. And with sitting with something, and that's what Angel's Egg. Do we want to move on to that, or do we have more to say about Dragons?
Let me see. 80s rock. Robots in robes are cool. Get that Final Fantasy VII bass in for the fight scene.
I did use to good effect robots in robes.
Robots in robes is so cool.
The bad guy wearing his robe and then getting shot and then appearing out of the explosion with just the little like cape that is left over from his robe fucking rocks.
Tight as hell. Ava does that too.
Yeah.
There's a I think that's how Unit 2 is introduced. It's wearing like the burlap cover or whatever.
Yeah, it's like very spaghetti western man with no name style look. Yeah.
Tight as shit. I mean, the final fight that's just like a grapple and an explosion is a pretty big letdown in Dragon's Heaven.
I really like Dragon's Heaven for like its visuals, and I do think the characters are really fun. I don't think the story is anything super impressive. It's just you know what that Dragon's Heaven strikes me as? We talked about what's the one that we watched that was Robot Carnival?
Robot Carnival. Man, that's fucking awesome.
I love that one. I love that. But you know what that is? Like, that is a movie by animators. Yeah. If you let animators just do what they want to do, you're going to get really beautiful. Not every animator, clearly not every animator. Yeah. But I find that when animators are just kind of like doing what they want to do, they'll sort of just go into like visual storytelling, and they might not worry as much about like cohesiveness of story. They'll probably just like kind of follow their whims, which results in an incredibly beautiful movie that is almost like a music video at times in Robot Carnival. And I think Dragon's Heaven approaches that sometimes, where there is a story, but like it's not so much concerned with telling like a really like conclusive or captivating story. It's really just the story is more of a excuse to make really cool big robots fire lasers at each other.
When something is free to not hit, like when something is free to bounce off of you, like then you get something excellent. Like I don't love Boy and the Heron. I'm kind of meh on it, but I think the older I get and the more I ruminate on it, the more I'm really glad it exists. And I support what Miyazaki is saying, which was animation used to be very weird, and we can get back there.
Right. And that's we were moving on to this idea of Angel's Egg is weird. And I think I think what a lot of people, especially if you watch anime, because a lot of anime, and I was just sort of decrying animators being able to just sort of like be vibey and be tonal and less narratively driven. And I like that stuff. But I think sometimes you don't get the quite it's really hard to create something that is very tonal and also satisfying in that story cycle way, like where you get like a very not conclusive ending, but like it feels like it closes, it feels like it has like a beginning, middle, and end. And I think I think Robot Carnival has like a couple sequences that really work that way, and then a couple that you're like, I don't know what that was about, but it looked really pretty. Dragon's Heaven, I know what it was about, but I think it just is like, hey, the bad guy showed up and we won, and like, which is cool. Like, that's cool. Like, that's a great little story, and the characters again are very sweet and nice. Angel's Egg, I think, is 71 minutes of a lot of silence and a lot of very stark imagery. And I think you could look at it and be like, wow, this is weird because I don't know what happened. But I think what it is it's got an idea that he's got a very clear thing that he's saying. I think a very clear thing that he's saying. I took a message from it. And,
Me too.
And he's being like, hey, just sit with this and let these images wash over you. And then think about what that made you feel and what that made you think about. And I think like a lot of art house movies do that. And when someone says this thing is weird, I think it just means they maybe haven't had as much exposure to things that don't tell you what to think about them, right?
Well, I think anyone can tell you that Angel's Egg is about faith. Like, that is very, very clear. Like, there's no like obscurity to that point anywhere. Like, Angel's Egg is very much about faith. But there's a nice little like meta element to that too, where that faith is extended to the viewer. Like, if you have faith that the artist is trying to express something to you, even though it's not in a conventional way, you will potentially get something out of this. But if you don't have faith and you're like, just give me the good stuff, just smash the egg. Like,
right. Like, I want to know what this is about. I'm not comfortable sitting in ambiguity. And I think Angel's Egg, clearly a massive influence, so much so that an item exists in a Dark Souls game. It's extremely big influence on the aesthetics of Dark Souls and the Souls series.
Very much. You could say the whole faith stat, which I could write paragraphs about, that goes throughout the entire Souls series. You could say the whole faith stat like is just an Angel's Egg reference in math,
right?
Like,
yeah, it's the numbers designers working with that idea, right?
Yeah
Not the words designers.
And so to me, like, watching Angel's Egg, and I watched it through without subtitles, so I didn't know what the major, I can put together what's happening, but I didn't know what the major monologue was about, so I had to look that up later. But then I was like, oh, okay.
Well, the funny thing is, and like, again, requiring faith of your audience, like you have to meet it somewhere, right? Like, the Angel's Egg is a movie that requires you to meet it at its to come out of like what you want, which is to be told what the characters' motivations are. You want the story to give you the story beats, right? You want it to you want to be like, well, what's happening here? Why am I watching this? Like, why is this very quiet, very symbolic looking imagery happening? And there are 4 words in the first 24 minutes. And those 4 words occur within 5 seconds of each other. And then you are sat with silence for 24 minutes of this 70-minute movie. And then there's not that much in the way of words throughout the rest of it, but there are more words in the middle portion of it.
But, and like, in a very Dark Souls way, like you're saying, you have to put it together. Like, that is the like core of Dark Souls storytelling, is you're given all these little pieces of a story and you have to assemble them one at a time, where like you'll get, you'll look at a rock and the rock will say like, cool badass McKnight guy once tripped on a rock, and you'll be like, oh, who's cool badass McKnight guy? And then you'll get a sword later and you'll be like, oh, this is the sword of cool badass McKnight guy because it's got a scuff mark on it from where he tripped on a rock.
Yeah.
It's just putting together all these little things, but the joy is like putting them together yourself. I think, if I can sum up my interpretation of Angel's Egg is just, what if God is mad at us? Like, it's just that. It's like, what if everything sucks because God is mad at us? It's are you familiar with Theodicy?
Wait, Theodicy or the Odyssey?
Theodicy or Theodicy.
Oh, okay. No, I'm not.
Is Judgment of God. It's sort of a theological, philosophical way of understanding how people rationalize Christian God, who is supposed to be omnipotent, all-powerful, omniscient, all-knowing, and omnibenevolent, all-loving. So God, in Christian faith, God is these 3 things, but if you pay attention to the world and you see bad things happening to good people and good things happening to bad people, you have to rationalize those three qualities of God. So what most people do is they just take away one of them, and that's how they imagine God being. So taking away God's omnipotence, he's just powerful. God knows everything and he loves us, but he just can't do, he can't just strike everything down. That's up to us. That's one interpretation. You take away omniscience and God is knowing, but not all knowing. He's all powerful and he's all loving. So he's basically Superman. He just can't be everywhere at once.
Right.
He's doing his best, but we kind of have to help God and be like, hey, we got to pray and stuff like that. So
right.
that's one interpretation. But the one I think a lot of people do go for without even thinking about it, and the one Angel's Egg explores is maybe God's love is not unconditional. Maybe we kind of need to meet God halfway a little bit and prove that, we love him. And many faiths do not consider omnibenevolence a quality of an all-powerful God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Angel's Egg is especially there, where they're like, God loves us, but he's not sold on humanity yet. We have pulled some shit.
Yeah.
And that's the whole thread of Angel's Egg is just, with the birds and the angel skeletons and whatever, they're still on the ark. God is still trying to call them and be like, all right, the flood's over. We're good now. Just, have faith in me and we'll be cool. And humanity just keeps ignoring bigger and bigger and bigger signs. That's the comedy aspect of it to me, is the
cosmic comedy, right?
The cosmic comedy. Well, and the regular comedy. Because in my head, how can you not have sympathy for humanity as an all-powerful being? How can you not find us funny?
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're sending literal biblical signs at us and we keep fucking them up.
Yeah.
The whole fish sequence, the whole fisherman pursuing fish, looking at the fish, not at the birds, being that, that's just the salary man, right?
Yeah.
They're so concerned with the material world, with the flood, with the bad stuff, with the base, with the material, that they're not looking up. They don't think of anything beyond. They're just looking down.
Yep.
The fish being this kind of almost base hell kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we watched these fishermen chase ghosts around and smash windows and stuff.
Literally destroying the only things that they have left, the only material items they have left, literally destroying them with their spears and their weapons, which are implements of gathering food, right, and gathering and sustenance, but they're using them ultimately as weapons. And the imagery of those characters is they're fishermen, but they're soldiers, right? They look like soldiers carrying spears. They don't look like fishermen until they start to, throw things, and you see the rigging on the harpoons and whatnot.
And I think that's a criticism of people who look at life in too secular of a light. They ignore how fantastic it is that we're actually here. Mm-hmm. They ignore the beautiful things about the world and the things that are unexplainable, and focus on chasing the shadows of reality, which is ultimately an illusion, which is a very East meets West, reality is an illusion, but also God is mad at us.
So I read this as and this is the second time I've watched Angel's Egg, and the first time I just sort of let it wash over me, and I didn't try to make too much sense of it. I just kind of enjoyed the visuals of it, the beauty of it, the ghostly haunting atmosphere of it. And I really didn't write anything down or kind of take any notes or anything like that. And this time, because I knew I was going to talk about it, I did a little bit more of that, but not too much. Again, I was really just sort of trying to, this is one that I think is really about, this is what I was talking about when I was talking about short video games. This is one that's a short little movie that you're supposed to continue to watch over and over again, and let it wash over you, and maybe find new things each time, because you're a different person every time you watch it. You're in a different headspace every time you watch it. What I really picked up on this time while I was watching it was our two main characters. We have the little girl and the kind of soldier cross-bearing guy, right?
Yeah.
And it's pretty obvious that, like, the first shot we see after we meet the main character, the little girl, is the Ark. So we're given like this very like Christian, and we get the shot of the other guy with his cross that he wears over his shoulder, standing with that giant cross, and then there's like this kind of like there's other biblical imagery involved in that portion of it. I didn't write those down, but we get the only words that we get for the first 24 minutes, which are who are you, and then we're kind of taken into her world. And what I really picked up on this one was she's water and he's wind, right? And everything with her is she's like is collecting water and drinking water and is around water, and she's very in tune with the water, and the water's beautiful and it reflects her back at herself, and she's sustained by it, and she looks through it and it warps the world into beautiful visions for her, right? And like so like she's very like in tune with what the thing that's all around them, and when she offers him water, he denies it, and when it's raining, he tries to protect her from it, and eventually she does take she does take shelter with him, and ultimately it's a poor choice, right? To kind of divorce herself from the water around her. And when he shows up and there's that massive eyeball ship, and it shoots steam vapor everywhere, which is the mixture of water and wind, right? But it's like technological version. It's not a natural. I mean, steam is natural, but the way it is presented in this is very unnatural. It's being forced out by this electronic contraption, this man-made contraption of some sort, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's God. I don't know. But
I think the megastructure is God. The big eye. I think it's God, but it looking so constructed makes it like a product of man, like
or we are the product of that thing, and like we're so, like that's we're seeing ourselves on it. Literally, we see one of our characters on it at the end of the movie.
Yeah, or we built a machine to judge us, and it's made up of us.
There's a lot to be read into that, but I think that like what is interesting is a lot of the imagery, especially like the very first shot of the hands, like it looks as if they're playing in water. Very sensuous. And then like a lot of the shots of her, her hair is flowing in ways that look like she could be laying in water, but it could also be that she's being blown by wind. And like I think there's a lot of like visual motifs going on of like wind and water.
Very evocative of her death, which is drowning.
Right.
She's fascinated by water, but you can't breathe water. You can breathe air. You can breathe air. You can't breathe water.
Yeah. But like there's like a like I don't know. Like they're the only elements that are like really present in this movie, except for one tiny little bit of fire that she keeps alive. Yeah. Right.
I have a water question for you, and I have a theory about it. But what do you make of all of the jars of water? I mean, again, I think that's her. That's like a nurturing thing, right? She's a nurturer. She gathers water. She wears the egg under her hood or her dress or her shirt, like does like a little pregnancy belly,
as if she were pregnant, and she carries it and nurtures it, and like one of the first things he says is like, break the egg and see what's inside. That's the only way to see what's inside. And then it's like, well, what about nurturing it and letting it hatch on its own? What about faith in the fact that if there is something in there for us to see, we let it, we nurture it into existence instead of breaking it into existence, right? But I took the water as like a gathering and nurturing thing, because like if you're on an ark and all that's around you is water, you still need water to live, even if it's the thing that is also kind of destroying you, Very fair. And rain would be a blessing and not something to avoid. Exactly, yes. But so what I saw is, so the water, she like lines up in sort of like the tomb of the birds and angels and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. Like, this is definitely not supported, but my head went to, maybe this is a ritual. Like the bottle of water is very much like an egg, except you can see through it. Mm-hmm. And the mystery of the egg is you can't see through the egg. Like the only way to know what's in the egg is to smash it, but you can easily look through a bottle of water. So I made the connection that maybe like there are elements of faith that are clear. There are elements of faith where you can see
the use of them, and she focuses on that. And then there are elements of faith that don't have easy explanations to them.
Yeah.
And are a little bit difficult to justify, and are more work, and are weirder. Like, I could see that that tomb being lined with eggs as like some kind of hatchery instead of bottles of water, but all she has are bottles of water.
Mm-hmm.
And she's paying special attention to the egg. So I see like the nurturing water thing, but I wonder if because, you know, she is, I guess, Kierkegaard's Knight of Infinite Faith, and the soldier would be Kierkegaard's Knight of Infinite Resignation, where the Knight of Faith believes that, so like the idea is both knights are in love with their respective princesses or ladies of court, but they have no hope of marrying them.
Mm-hmm.
And the Knight of Infinite Resignation is like, you know what? I can never marry this woman, but I'm not going to give up. Like, I'm not going to say that one day it'll happen. I'm going to love her from afar, and that's my life.
Right.
Like, that's the Knight of Infinite Resignation. He's resigned to his fate. He knows it's not going to happen. The Knight of Infinite Faith is the same, except the Knight of Infinite Faith is like, I'm going to love this woman, and you know what? Through God, all things are possible. Like, it could happen. I just have to have faith. I just have to, you know, I just have to push through. And if I'm a good Christian, and if I keep my faith, then a good thing will happen.
Yeah.
And that's like the two characters. It's like the Knight of Infinite Resignation is like, yeah, you know, God hates us and everything sucks. And the little girl's like, okay, maybe we can like have him not hate us so much. Maybe we can prove we're chill. Maybe if we stop killing all of the birds he sends to welcome us back to Eden. Like,
yeah. It's I love that. I love that interpretation of it. I think that's a really great one.
And it takes so much to make me like anything Christian, but it takes so much to make me love Bible fanfic. But I think this is like cutting enough into just general, like, the mystery of the world sort of thing.
Right.
Like, the mystery of existence.
Yeah. Like, I think that I don't know. I didn't read it as like, it is clearly a very like Christian themed movie, but we
are on an arc.
Right, exactly. Like, I think that, yeah, like, I didn't read it, like, I don't know, I kind of read it as like maybe a little bit of a slight outside observer, because Christianity is relatively new to Japanese culture to a certain extent, you know? It's not that old that it's been there. So there is still a lot of like, although it has ingrained itself a little bit, it's not as ingrained as, you know, as the world that we're seeing in this film is like a European world, right? It's a European cities, European architecture, and it's broken down and it's old and it's beaten, and you know, like, I think that is, and it's very gothic, you know, like there's a clear, like, it's about a specific setting and in a specific world. I feel like to me it always kind of feels a little bit like, I don't know, maybe that like the colonization of the world and like the spread of Christianity has infiltrated everywhere at this point, but you know, that doesn't mean that the people that are like, I don't think that our main character, the girl, I don't think that she is a Christian, you know, like, I don't view her as like
she's much too pagan and barefoot to be a Christian.
Yeah, she strikes me as like a very like naturalistic, maybe more like, I don't even want to say like Shinto, but like, I don't know, like a more like, yeah, like pagan, or like just like kind of like connecting with nature. And like, that's what a lot of the things we see, like, she's looking into water and it's reflecting herself back at her. She's looking through the water in the and she's enjoying like the senses of like drinking the water and you know, like, and playing in it, walking in it, you know, there's like a lot of like sensuous things that she does throughout the movie, whereas our boy is very like dead-eyed and unaffected, and the wind blows him and he doesn't even feel it, type of thing. You know, he bumming around. Yeah, he bumming. He's sad. I love that last shot, and I think that last shot is so good because there are so many moments again of like stillness, and I think what I was really appreciating about this movie this time, we will get to the last shot. What I really like about this movie is it forces you to sit with it and to meet it where it wants you to meet it, which is like, don't don't reach. I know it's quiet, and I know you want to get your phone right now, which is made way before phones. But I know that this is straining your attention span. But trust me, just stick with this.
Yeah, just have faith.
Just have faith. Just have faith in the film. And I think that this movie, I don't know. I think it the way I think it weaves its spell is a way that a lot of my favorite directors weave their spell, which is very opposite of Dragon's Heaven. Dragon's Heaven, especially its sound design, is the key spot that I see this. In Dragon's Heaven, the sound design is everything is every action, every footfall, everything has a sound to it, right? Very micro sound design. And like, so it's like constant titillation of the mind, right? This is macro sound, mostly wind noises, maybe music, and footfalls. No footfalls have sound in this. No small, like most of the small actions do not have sound effects to them. You're mostly seeing a scene as a painting, as this like big image that you're supposed to take in as a whole, and there is one or two soundscapes moving throughout it that are setting a tonal pace for this thing. And like Lynch talks about how visuals set to sound, just sound, become music after a while. And I think the sound effects in this movie become music after a certain point, because you're just kind of like, it's not about the sounds evoking tactile things, right? Like they're not like trying to sell you that this footfall is real. It's just a wind, right? Like you're just hearing wind, and the wind is like to be like, when the beginning of it, you hear wind because this wind is approaching, this guy is approaching, this phantasm of the wind is approaching, and then you hear water noises as she's like moving through the watery world and playing throughout the watery world, So it's like, I think that the sound design is sort of also setting the themes and the tone of this thing, and kind of it's giving you something to grasp onto and to give meaning to these really long pauses. And I think, to get back to the last shot real quick, the final shot is so long, right? Like, our main protagonist does this horrible act of he completely lacks faith, and he uses his implement of Christianity, his cross that he carries, to smash this egg, right?
Good point.
Yeah, like he uses, like, I don't know. I think that is like, I think there's a bit of a faith can be a misleading.
Maybe no, that makes more sense than me imagining it as Christian fan fiction. Maybe it's more like anti-Christian, where it's like we're using religion to smash this very natural curiosity of the world,
right?
Like having things be explained through religion, like, is kind of a faithless act in a way.
Yeah.
Where, like, we have a project coming out eventually where we talk about the mythopoeic mind, and like imagining the world in a poetic way, which is the natural way of people before like science and stuff. Like, it's just, when thunder is in the sky, we're not imagining air molecules and heat like interacting. We're imagining the gods are angry, because that makes poetic sense to us.
Right. And we better go hide in our cave because the gods are pissed off right now. Right.
Yeah. And I think like there's that like young angle coming back in Angel's Egg, where it's like, maybe like we are a little more comfortable and a little better suited to imagining the world poetically rather than, exactly.
Well, and isn't that just what we're talking about with like how people view this movie? This movie's weird because it doesn't give you answers, right? Because it plays in like a space that we're not quite as comfortable with, which is raw faith, right? But like, this is talking about constructed faith, and using constructed faith of like, well, there has to be a meaning. God has to be sending us a signal about when the world will be good again, this guy's so desperate to see if the world is good again that he's going to smash the beautiful things, the little bits of like growing life, because everything's dead in this world, right? Like, this is an egg, a thing that is like going to potentially spawn into something new, and this world desperately needs new things. and he smashes it because he doesn't have the raw mythopoeic faith, right?
Yeah, he can't wait. He can't just wait. He has to know now. And there's no way to experience what's in the egg and to like know right now what's there. So the egg is death a little bit, where it's like, we don't know.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Like there's a lot cooking in this thing, man. But like, I love that last shot because like he does that and he walks out onto a beach. He sees that giant eye and he sees the form of the girl who's
and she's on there now, and he's like, oh, yeah, could have been me.
Yep. And he stands there, and we get this overhead shot that pulls out. And this whole time, we keep getting shots of this arc from like a far distant angle down on the ground. It's backlit. And you're like, oh, there's like a shot of an arc. Okay, interesting. Maybe she lives in the arc, like that's where her house is. That's kind of cool and poetic that she lives inside of an arc and she's carrying an egg. Cool. And then we go back into the world, and you think that you think the arc exists in the world, right? And then you get this pull out, and this is the like Twilight Zone ending, is that we pull out and we pull out and we pull out, and the landscape grows and grows and grows around this boy, and suddenly you see the edges of the coast expand, and it's forming a shape, and then you pull up high enough, and it's so long. What is it like? It's at least like 3 or 4 minutes long, this shot, and finally, you pull out far enough that you see, oh my God, the entire world that we were seeing exists on the arc. And we've been on the arc the whole time.
And I think it is like a hopeful ending because and I think it comes from that really kind of tired looking mechanical eye. Just like gazing at the young soldier and not like turning away, just being like, what now? So like, okay, now you know what's in the egg. You gonna be cool? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, it could be read in so many ways. It could be read hopefully. It could be read that like the world is over. Like there's a certain like, well, the world has ended and you're just stuck on the, the arc has lasted throughout it, but it's become a coffin in a way. Like there's a lot of ways to read that ending.
I guess it really like reinforced a philosophy I've kind of had my entire life, which is, how can you not love people? They're so dumb. Like they're so wasteful, and they're so like we have like the rarest like setup in the known universe, and we're bored. We don't give a shit. Like we're such pitiable creatures. Like how do you not laugh a little bit at us? And I'm not trying, like, there are many, many wonderful things about people. Yeah. But for all the terrible things about people, I'm like, how do you not sympathize? Like, how do you not find that a little funny?
Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot to this movie. I think is like, I don't think it is weird in a way. It's weird if you relate it to,
it's unique. Like, I wish there were lots of movies that hit their point this strong and had the confidence to be quiet.
Yeah.
I think the biggest thing I struggle with as far as art is negative space. Where
I think we all do. Yeah.
I just want to fill every piece of negative space. Like, the idea of leaving a big quiet gap somewhere and having somebody say, is it broken? Is something wrong with it?
There was a part in the beginning before the title pops up that like goes black. And I was actually, when I started the movie, it took a second to start up and it was like kind of like delaying. And then like, I was like, oh, okay. And I just hit some buttons and it worked. And when that happened, I was like, hold on a second. Did it freeze on me here? And I had to like pause it. And I was like, oh no, it didn't. I just needed to have faith that the black screen was going to end and the title was going to pop up. Because it just holds a little longer than you probably would, right?
Yeah, and I think for whatever reason, that is terrifying to me, this idea of someone being like, is that the intended experience? Like I think about the faithless audience more than the faithful audience for my work.
You kind of have to, right? You were like that's like, that's ultimately it. Like this author of this had to have faith, right? Had to have faith that he could do it this way and that people were going to watch it and pay attention to it and not bounce off of it when it got hard.
I'm sure tons of people bounced off of this. And, I get it. Like if you're, it might not be my go-to after a stressful day of work. So, actually, I would absolutely watch this after a stressful day of work, but I'm me. But like, I get it. Like, again, I have sympathy for folks who don't have the spare faith to go around. It sucks right now and all the time and forever. Like being alive is difficult, but I think if you can scrounge up that faith and put it somewhere where it matters, that's the key. Like that's a good start. Two very different anime, Dragon's Heaven and Angel's Egg. One very concerned with good feelings and one very concerned with all feeling.
It's crazy that they could both be Big Sad World, but Dragon's Heaven, like Dragon's Heaven is just like I really thought I had started Dragon's Heaven a couple times, and just had not sat down. I was like, oh no, I need to be able to pay attention to this. I'm not going to dive into it. And I had started it so many times and gotten to that big battle sequence. So in my mind, the movie was going to be this like harrowing war movie, and there are like a lot of sequences of like massive destruction, but like they're like. It's like fun, right? It's like when the dragon fire explosion occurs in it, it's not like, oh my god, like awe-inspiring destruction. It's just like, yeah, hell yeah, Cheyenne just effed some stuff up. This rocks.
Yeah,
you know?
the villain is like, are you sure you want to explode? Like, you kill your human friend, and he's like, she's lucky.
Yeah,
it's like, Cheyenne,
chill out, bro.
Maybe.
She's a human. She's just a little tiny human. But she is lucky.
Yeah, she is lucky. And yeah, it all works out.
Cheyenne has faith.
Yep.
I think Angel's Egg is a movie that people just need to just chill and just like let it watch over you. And I think, I don't know, I had a hard time getting there when I was younger. I have completely come around on David Lynch over the last like 15 years of my life. There was a point where like I respected him, but I did not like him. And I, at some point, learned to be a little more willing. I liked obtuse or abstract or weird things. I enjoyed that stuff. But I don't know. I needed a certain amount of like plot or style or verve, you know, like some sort of like, I needed some sort of like thing to kind of like make it palatable for me. And then I learned about like what he was trying to say and like how he was trying to challenge the way that I was viewing things. And I think opening up to that idea and trying to like learn how to like meet art at a different place, like outside of your comfort zone, is really important. And this is a perfect movie to test that on.
Yeah, and it's a good, like, you know, barometer of where you are, like, kind of on your artistic journey, both as, like, both in terms of taste and in terms of ambition, where I'm like, I don't really want to make something like Angel's Egg.
No, I don't think I would even, I would never try, because I don't think I would, I mean, who knows? Like, do you have to be really smart to make something like this, or do you have to just be really faithful in yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I would love to have something that I felt that strongly enough to take like that big of a risk with. But, you know, like I was, my roommates were watching Return of the King the other night. And like I poked my head in because I fucking love Lord of the Rings. Yeah. But like it was the part where Legolas takes down the Oliphant.
Yeah.
And
Jen hates that part.
Yeah. And I was just like watching it and, you know, there's a Wilhelm scream in there and like the music becomes very Star Wars-y for that part.
Yeah.
And like Gimli has his like zinger and like I love Gimli. Yeah. But I think he gets progressively like C-3PO-ified throughout that trilogy.
For sure.
Where he's like a noble dude who learns not to be a piece of shit in the books. Gimli is kind of like a noble dude who becomes a goofy goober.
Yeah. Yeah, he becomes pure comic relief by the end of that.
Yeah. And you know, that's fine. Like I understand like that's an easy cut to make and the movie needed a Jar Jar as it were. But yeah, just like seeing the conventionality as the movies got more expensive, they became more conventional. And that's why Fellowship I think is my favorite because it still feels so raw and student filmy.
Yeah, I think that's my favorite too. I love those movies though. Like, and I love I love the conventionality of those movies. Like, what ultimately happened with those movies was I learned to love the camp of them, right? Like that's what's made them stand the test of time, is that camp.
Yeah, Grand, like all the fan stuff, like being like, that's a real knife that's being thrown at Aragorn, and like here's Aragorn breaking his foot, and like all the other like weird stuff.
Yeah.
That we just know because we're on the internet now and we're bombarded with it.
But even like the catchphresses, like looks like beats back on the menu, boys. Like
that still only counts as one. Yeah.
Right? Like that's such a exactly. Like these lines that are like so ridiculous, and like ultimately in any other movie that wasn't like extremely loving about itself, like wasn't like it's a pure work of love, that movie, from everyone involved. Any other movie that like if people were doing it as a job, which I think a lot of big blockbuster movies end up becoming jobs for people, those could come off as false, but none of it is false in those movies. It's all like truly, it's there because they thought it was funny and fun and enjoyable, and I don't know, that's what I love about those movies. So it's just interesting. It's the opposite end of the spectrum, though, for sure.
Do you remember when I first started as a host on Goosebuds, like 3-4 years ago? And like for my first few episodes, I kept bringing up Lord of the Rings since I had just reread it.
Yeah, I think I was just rereading it too, so we were just both obsessed with it. Yeah,
and we would like call it out, and I think over the course of the last couple of years, like we have brought up Lord of the Rings at least once an episode. Like we just stopped calling it out.
It's hard not to. It's such a the book and the movie are just so. Those have been in my life longer than almost anything. Like there has been in my life as long as Star Wars has. Yeah,
but like and I talked out the side of my mouth about Star Wars in comparison to Lord of the Rings in the Oliphant scene, which I still don't really like.
Yeah.
But like I think the reason why we're talking about them is they are convention. Like this is the conventional way we would see, the end of Return of the King be, with everybody running, towards Mordor and shouting for Frodo and all that. Like that's just Avengers Endgame. Like or Avengers Endgame is just that. Like we're seeing kind of the foundation of modern film being laid down as convention, and why I love going back to the 80s and Japan for movies lately is because the convention is different. It's still there, but very occasionally you'll get something that is so unconventional, like a 20-minute anime and a 20-minute puppet show with commentary, or just a completely like tonal like faith meditation film like in Angel's Egg, or just like a very similar but like sillier meditation in Cat Soup, like which is I think aughts, right, or early 2010s for Cat Soup.
2001 for Cat Soup.
Nice. Great film.
I love that one. I love anytime I love like a traveling into the world of the dead story. I think is always a lot of fun.
I agree. I'm slightly death obsessed. It's a big part of my anxiety. So I love anything that gives me a little story.
Yeah.
Like Lord of the Rings.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, like, you're spot on with that. With like, I love like world film for that reason, because it's like, it's fun, especially like you have to go back a couple decades, because at this point, like we've kind of spread there's like a kind of an overarching storytelling style now, right, that like spreads across the whole world, and like everybody kind of does it. Like clearly, like there are still films being made that are outside of like that like kind of standard 3-act story structure, but I think like Japanese film is one that I like a lot. Like Russian films, Eastern European films, like all over the Indian films, like there's like, and it's like fun to go and to like go back to a point where like those countries and those cultures hadn't been like kind of like the Americanized,
standardized, globalized.
The globalization hadn't fully happened yet. So there's like just a slightly different way of storytelling. Like Japanese movies, I've watched so many Japanese movies over the past couple of years, and like the thing that Japanese, at least like standard like filmed movies tend to be. I find that they are really good at like kind of presenting like sort of like kind of like quiet meditative stories that in the last 5 minutes rear up and absolutely destroy you emotionally. Like they just like lull you into this like the psychic distance is slowly eroded, right? Until it's like right up on you, and then they're like, bam, emotions, here you go.
That 4-beat structure is so important to learn, I think.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Of Japanese stories and Eastern stories in very generic general, but like set up, establish, twist, effects, like right. An ending on the twist and letting like the fallout from the twist be the ending, like an angel's egg, where it's like, okay, we've set up this world, we've established this thing, we're going to change one thing about it, and we're going to show you how everything changes because of that.
Yeah, and usually we end almost at that point, right? Like, whereas like I think like a more like Western, like maybe American, maybe European style story would like, you have that twist, and then you have the hero react to it, right? And maybe do something and act upon it. And then it's like, and then you have maybe like a denouement, like after they've like kind of internalized it. Whereas I feel like with stuff with Japanese, it's like Japanese films is usually it happens to the characters and you're like, oh, and you feel like that emotion with them of like the twist of the big twist of what, like Ozu is like perfect at this. Like last 5 minutes, some big event happens to everybody that you've been with the whole movie. And then you have like a couple of moments to sort of like maybe watch like the fallout settle a little bit and then you're done. Right?
Yeah.
It's just a little different, but it's like it's a pacing thing, but I don't know. It impacts me very greatly when I experience that.
And it's not like magic, right?
No.
Like it's not anything that's like vastly different from Western storytelling. And I think just the difference is like 88 Japan, when Dragon's Heaven came out, Japan was still in the bubble economy. Like there was no reason to import entertainment from elsewhere. Like you could, and they did. But you could there's enough money going around that you could have these cottage industries and you could have these like niche things, and like, shipping stuff over the island of Japan was easy, especially if you're in a city. Like it was very easy to distribute. It still is very easy to distribute.
Yeah.
And the thing that Japan has that America needs is small press. Like the internet is not small press. Like,
right.
And we kind of need to recognize that for us to get this style of storytelling back, this niche like thing, it has to be unobservable to some people.
Right.
Like it has to be not fully like
can't be palatable.
Transparent.
It can't be palatable to every single person for sure.
No, it should, and like it that means we're not going to have the runaway hits, but like I think art will get better.
Yeah,
like, I know that's a hard sell. But
yeah, well, I mean, this country's too damn big, Kevin. It's too big. We made too much of it.
I mean, we have states. Like I sent you that like Japanese photographer guy I really like who did the gold mine tour.
Yep.
And I'm like that's cool. And I'm like, do I want to go see a Japanese gold mine? And I'm like, I don't think I really do. I do kind of want to see if there's anything like that in Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
I would love it if somebody with that much skill and that equipment could go around my state and find something beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is that me? I'm like, no, I don't have the money for those cameras.
Yeah.
And I'm probably the worst photographer ever. Like I have the least steady hand of any person I've ever met. But I'm like, I want, I the way Japan just seems to respect itself, I want that for Massachusetts. Like I want that level of care and that level of pride. I think I know there's more nuance going on over in Japan than I'm allowed to see because I only interact with the media that they put out.
Right.
Like, but I just kind of want that for, where I am currently.
Yeah. Well, I think that does exist, but it's like you said, if you look at popular culture, you like in America, it has to cover 50 states and like
and like it's gotta be a four quadrant idea.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like so, like, and there are local small things that appeal just to their that art exists, but it's just like you gotta find your spaces, your places art, right?
Yeah, I want the locality, but I don't want the kitsch.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Like when I think of local state-based stuff, I think tourist trap kind of stuff.
Right.
But I want something that's genuinely like, I don't know, like I want cultural identity for the state that I'm in. And I don't see that being a priority for many artists.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a bummer.
I agree.
Classic bummer ending.
I mean, I had a great time. This was a nice divergence from our normal.
It was nice.
Our normal little kid book reading to go into a little bit more of a. It's funny because we watch cartoons, which a lot of people think is just for kids, but it was fun to watch adult cartoons with you, Kevin.
Yeah, it's always a fun conversation when you explain there are cartoons for not just kids to somebody who's not privy to that.
Yeah.
But yes, Paul, thank you for watching cartoons with me. I think if I had seen either of these as a child, my mind would be like blown and I would be way weirder than I am now. Yeah. So in that way, I'm very grateful to experience these as an adult where I feel like my enjoyment of them has not been cut in any way. In fact, it's been very much heightened.
Agreed. I agree. Yeah.
If you want to support us, go to Patreon. I'm Kevin.
That's Paul. We have other stuff too. If you want to check out, Kevin, where can people find you besides the good old Goosebuds?
You can find me at the supertry.itch.io or supertrystudios.com if you want to play my video games. People keep playing Bird Bowls, man.
Bird Bowls is good. Check out, if you haven't played a SuperTry game, bust out your web browser of choice because they're all available. Are they all available to be played? I know all of them aren't, but most of them are available to be played in a browser, right?
Yeah, like 90% of them are browser playable.
You don't need a dang thing other than a browser. And just play one. I think Bird Bowls is a great one to start with. I think it kind of encapsulates a lot of what you're about. And get yourself a little taste of that Kevin style, of that SuperTry style, because there's that is one that like is like, here's how you play the game. Okay, now we're gonna have a little moment to chill out, and you can just kind of like let that stuff mellow out and emerge into your being a little bit before you dive into the full game.
Yeah, I got Rex. Blink Blanc was a good SuperTry game. Mm-hmm. It's a puzzle platformer with like a really intricate design that I'm not sure how I made in a week, but like that's a tight one.
That's also the fun too, is a lot of them are made in like no time.
Yeah, there's lots on the supertry.itch.io if you want to play them. And I'd appreciate it if you did, because I like it when people play my video games.
They were made to be played, baby.
If you play my video games and you're like, this guy should make more video games, well, you can ensure that by going over to my Patreon, which you can find at givekevinmoney.com. I appreciate if you just want to sign up for free and keep in touch when I have stuff to say. Or you can give me money, which I super appreciate because I need special urinary cat food for my cat now,
I gotta do that for one of my cats too.
The vets are pushing this $3 a can cat food. And
it's
I'm
expensive.
Like, okay.
It's expensive stuff.
It's like opening a pack of magic cards for my cat every
day. And you don't get any chance at a rare. You just get rare love, which is nice.
That is good. And I would feed Hootie a box of magic cards a day if I had to. But
agreed.
If you want to help out with that, that's givekevinmoney.com. Paul, you just had a book come out. You just did some work for the mouse. Yeah.
Yeah, I just had a Disney audiobook for Mickey and Friends. It's on Audible. I think if you have an Audible account, it's free. I think you can also buy the book too. But it is a little story about Mickey, Minnie, Donald, and Goofy getting stuck in a mad scientist. That's not even they're getting stuck in an eccentric scientist's mansion that is about to launch into outer space, potentially taking them into space. And they have to escape. And it is a fun little story. It's very silly. We had a lot of fun playing with the fact that it was audio only. That was sort of the goal for us, was that we tried for every it's broken into like chapters, like a book is, and each chapter kind of has its own little audio goof that we tried to play with, and I think there's some really fun ones in there. So
awesome.
Yeah, you can check that out. Me and Nick Murphy, my co-host of Continue Show, which is somewhere else if you don't know about, I do a video game show where we play video games on the internet at youtube.com/continue show. We both wrote it together. I don't even know. I guess I can say I'm working on another one too. So,
oh hell yeah,
yeah. So there's gonna be more. But if you want to hear Mickey Mouse say words that me and Nick wrote, you can do that.
I really do. Yeah, and it's the Mickey Mouse voice actor on the audiobook. Right?
It is. Yeah, it's all of the main character voice actors
so cool.
are doing the voices for it. So it's really fun. And we got to write our own original characters too. And there's one guy in there that I simply love. And I hope that people also love that character.
Oh my god!
I don't want to spoil. I don't want to spoil anything.
I need something to listen to on my walks, so I will be obtaining this audiobook for myself.
That's delightful. It is for children, so it is a children's book. But I think
that's fine.
I think adults should hopefully be able to find enjoyment in it as well.
Yeah, that's about all our stuff. Support Goosebuds on Patreon. Send Chad your love, please. And yeah, thank you for listening to us.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye forever.
Bye.
This episode of Goosebuds is brought to you by our wonderful Patreon supporters, including those in the Book of Names.
The Book of Names.
Starting with Low Belly Hate Me,
Hollis Hornbeak,
Nathan Dolezal,
Hey Josh Robb,
Afsheen,
Stealth, a beautifully fleshed skeleton Bates,
Robert Moon,
Jason Crooker.
DM me. I'll tell you about the Rite Aid fraud.
Yeah, I'd like to know. Are we frauding Rite Aid or is Rite Aid frauding us?
Yeah, I'm trying to get in on this.
It's almost definitely Rite Aid frauding.
Damn.
The Juggalobalist.
Aiden is doing shots of Skittles Littles. Dangerous.
Gregory D. Warren.
Leviathan.
Jar Jar Slinks.
The John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation.
Yanni Markovina.
Carl.
Anthony Mulberry.
Brooke X.
Christian Van Skeever.
Jeremy Lowe.
Zach Connor.
Andrew Jadzik can't figure out how to ship a made brandy old-fashioned sour, but will gladly mail garlic dill pickles next summer. I've received those pickles before. They're worth receiving. So if you want to take Andrew up on that, hit him up.
You gotten pickles from Andrew's Jadsak?
Yeah, make sure everybody who is in the Book of Names hits up Andrew and asks for the pickles, please.
Yeah, I will receive a pickle.
I think you just put the old-fashioned sour in a pickle jar and ship that.
Andrew, try it.
Carson Birkenbean.
Tevin Ticklebean whispers, "Rich people are a scam," and releases the arrow.
The arrow! Luke! Period.
Matt McClellan.
Juan Jalapeno.
Keith Halcrow.
Clay McCarty, a.k.a. Yowie Gagarin.
Nailed it.
Wait,
Matthew
no.
Sutton. What?
Yowie Gagarin. I did the Chad pronunciation.
No, I did it the correct way.
Gagarin also works, I think. Phonetically.
Gagarin.
If you say it like that, it's correct.
Matthew Sutton.
Kelsey Gitteman.
Tobias Clark.
Russell Kasberg.
Xavier Jimenez Castillo.
Renna Kemp.
MC Hamster commits his body to the ice.
Limp Duck.
Jonas Blotterman.
Chris, does it smell like new book in here, Nelson?
That's sweet. It's a sweet smell. Kieran McNamara.
I think that's the most tame Chris Nelson has been in several months.
You're right. The most PG.
Yeah, streak.
Lamb.
Coleman Laguza.
Diet Soda.
Jonas Enevoldsen.
Goosebumps theme. Woof, 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 woof.
Nailed it.
Iro Forte.
Meta for the metaphor. New music coming soon.
Zambambino.
Ah, the meatloaf.
Burger's functioning replacement for Kevin's heart. Kevin, is your heart not okay?
No, I need burgers. I need burgers for the heart.
Some of Chad's bird friends just bought a copy of Space Kings.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah.
Nicholas Maloney.
Kevin, make sure they didn't pay with seed.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's how they try to get you. Or small, like, shiny rocks. They try to do that a lot.
Bubbles.
You might take those.
Lucretia McEvil.
Mutant astronaut.
Need more kimchi.
Logan Derby.
Cameron Hansen.
Callum Monster Misfire West.
He's transforming. Yoplin.
Generally depressing.
Philip Reynolds.
Nate Bitg.
Ryan R. Davis.
Scott Wable.
Resident Lorcana guy.
Ev Dog.
Gluten-free Rocky Mountain Oysters.
Yucky.
Stinklich.
Megan McCormick Mason.
Ninja Breadman.
Sprinkle Buds.
Aaron Lord.
Dr. Chocula.
Mike Hart.
SSJ Trogdor.
Cassandra Harris.
Max Boltzmann.
Farrah. Erring?
Mike Spaghetti Jones.
Questo Goblingo. Great guy. Good lord. What the hell? Felt like an aneurysm I was having.
Kyle O'Neill.
Red Baron.
Tan, your hide is fighting off the aliens, waiting for more pretend friends in Goosebuds RPG.
Yeehaw!
Gotta give him some alien fighting entertainment. Saturn Video.
Kiwi of Lerv.
Chevy LaGrange.
Paul, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Chev.
You're welcome. I was trying to not take credit for it, but you know.
Forgot that was your name. I'm so sorry. I forgot.
Classic sea leg.
Is it me? I don't know what happened.
It's you. It's you, Chev.
Oh, I got threw off because I talked after
Yeah.
after I wrote my name. Cyberbully with love. Chevy.
Max is a box that shoots death.
I love it. Logan Kilgus.
Mr. Bumpy versus the Closet Monster versus Destructo.
My money's on Closet Monster.
Phil Force, prophet of Paul cries. Da da da.
Okay.
Problem Child 2 on DVD.
Am I a Christ? Odin's _ eyehole.
Turaku dash the thing that goes doink in the anime.
Dunk.
Nail 7.
Wade Norcross.
Ben Foyosayer.
Oh, really? Oh, you kind of forced that one there, Kev. Be careful there.
Yeah, you're gonna pop a vein.
J. Farr hopes 2025 will bring about many spooks and good books. Surely this is the year RL turns it around.
Surely this is RL's year. Bob Cabbage.
The Shrekronomicon.
Geege.
Smelodies.
Soap.
Tim I. Healy.
Spencer Leith Johnston.
Shout out to my favorite Elden Ring item, soap. AI and MC.
That gets the poison rot off you, the soap? Is that what it
Yeah,
does?
you can
Soap's
watch the
good.
goop off you.
Soap's good.
How about just don't make a poison rot swamp?
Impossible. He doesn't even know he's doing it at this point.
Jesus Christ. Caleb doesn't have much to say this month. That's okay, Caleb.
That's all right. Thank you.
Lumo Nuva.
Tall glass of dumb bitch juice might actually be pee.
Oh, I heard, but I heard if you drink that, it's good for you.
Dun 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 dun.
It is sterile.
Yeah. I drink my grandson's pee sometimes. It's a Nathan for You reference for anyone who gets it. Nowhere, Lucas.
I know it. The eldritch nipples of Arg Elstein.
Woo. Seal Reagan wants Chad to play Parasite Eve, parentheses the first one. Dude, I want Chad to play both Parasite Eves, and the third birthday is not a Parasite Eve. No,
I've heard that. I want to play Parasite. I had a huge crush on Eve as a kid. I'd read the gaming magazines. It's like, she's beautiful.
You had a crush on Aya?
Yeah,
probably?
you do not want to
Oh,
have.
Aya. Also Eve. I mean, she was like a beautiful monster lady,
She
right?
kind of has like an undercarriage that's like a rhinoceros, but inside out.
I can make that work.
It's making the black arachnia thing make much more sense.
Treehouse of Jorge 5. Treehouse 2022.
Yes, Feratu, the vampire of consent.
Dude, vampires are all about consent.
I like that.
That's good.
Better a Yeti with a flaw than a Bigfoot without. Makes you think.
And yet, Tootin Watson.
Withern.
Angus Keith.
Big old dumb bird engaged to Lady Bird fiance.
Oh,
Congratulations.
congrats. Yay. Felix.
Quinn. Da-da-da-da-da-da.
Daniel Lavelle.
Nathan Galindo.
Wolf CIA.
Aru. Mitch Show.
J-Fan Crane.
Eric Wink. Wink.
Wink. Ari.
Respect me, daddy.
Ventus 13.
Ben L. cursed as a Halloween gingerbread. Help!
Oh no, too scary.
Oh, I'm hungry. Autumn.
Haptic.
Kevin Sorbo's Gourmet Tomatoes.
What a
I
belief.
had some of them and I was disappointed.
No
Oh,
way.
no.
No way. He actually did that. Good job, by the way, Chad. Smithy O's.
Okay.
How you gonna say this?
The gauntlet has been thrown. How you gonna say this?
I'm gonna sound it out first, and then I'm gonna do a full run. Patriothoglis Tistel.
I don't think this should be said out loud.
Patriothoglis Tistel, child of the new book.
Yeah, that opened a dark book somewhere.
Yeah, I don't like how that felt coming into my ears.
But if you rearrange the letters, it says...
Still Pather.
Yeah.
And welcome to the new book of names, Avery.
Hello, and welcome to the newest book of names, Snack Reiner.
And welcome to the new book of names, Cold_Mayhem. Perfect for our ice church.
Yeah, welcome to the ice church, brother.
The binding is fresh.
Thank you all so very much.
Thank you, everyone. If you didn't hear your name in the book, that means you gotta change your tier.
Change your tier. Update your Patreon. Thank you all so much for your love and support.
Get in here. Don't put an Eldritch name as your name. It scares me.
Shed no tears. Change your tiers.
Ooh, I like that.
Bye.
Goodbye, everyone.
Bye.
Woo.